Your app's database will probably have more than one table. You want to store tasks together with their tags, or maybe recipes and their authors. No matter what you store, it's usually the case that some of the tables are quite interconnected, and it would be perfect to get just the right data from both tables at the same time. That's what SQL joins are for. To make SQL joins safe, it's a good idea to use foreign keys. Otherwise, you might end up trying to get a tag or a recipe which doesn't exist. And you know that when you're trying to get something out of a database which doesn't exist, that's just not good at all. Finally, adding new columns or whole new tables to an already existing database requires you to provide a migration to let the previous versions of the database upgrade themselves. Hello, welcome to ResoCoder, where you are getting prepared for real app development by building better, faster, more stable apps. So subscribe and hit the bell if you want to grow your coding skills. In this third part of the Moor tutorial series, we're going to take a look at how to use all of the things which I described previously. In our case, we are building a task list application, so we will add tags, which will be stored inside a separate table. And then every task can have a tag, and to get the tasks together with tags, we will utilize foreign keys and table joins. And the UI which we will build toward the end of this part will look like this. So we can add a new tag here, so my new tag, and also choose its color in here, which will be done through a material color picker. So let's choose this yellow one. Now let's add this tag here. We can now use it for our task. We can add a date to the task, or we can even leave it empty so that the date will be null. The task will be record Moor number 3. Let's add this task in here. So we have record Moor number 3, and we can now complete it and even delete the task without a tag. I know this UI is not glamorous, but this is not a tutorial about making great UIs. But if you're interested in making great UIs, let me know in the comments and I will make a tutorial on that. And be sure to check out the written tutorial from the link in the description, where you can also find all of the code written in this video and overall just go over this part at your own pace. First up, let's go to pubspec YAML, and we are going to update a few packages and also add the new Flutter material color picker package. So let's just first update Moor Flutter to be version 1.6.0. This is the newest one. It doesn't change anything for us, but it's just a good thing to always update your package versions. Obviously, you will probably have some other version in here if you are watching this in the future, but the fundamentals should not change. We can now even remove this Moor because now the version is the same even for Moor Flutter and for the Moor core package. And with this done, we now just want to add a new package by using pubspec assist. And if you want to learn about which extensions I'm using for VS Code, click on the card in the corner. Pubspec assist is one of them. With pubspec assist, we can add a new dependency without going to the pub.dev site to find its version. We want to add a color picker here, and we are going to choose Flutter material color picker. So choose this one. It's automatically added in here, version 1.0.0. So let's now just save this and let's move on to add a tag to the database. So let's go to Moor database.dart file. And very much like we have a table definition for the tasks table, we also want to have a similar thing done for the tags. So let's create a new class, tags extends table, and this thing will have only two columns, name and color. Name will be also the primary key of a tag, and of course you can add the classic auto incrementing ID column like we are doing for a task. But just to keep things simple, reduce the amount of code that we write, we're going to use the name of a tag also as its primary key. So let's do it right now. We're going to add a text column called name, which will return a text with length not with default, but with length, because we want to constrain the length to be at minimum 1, because it doesn't make sense to have an empty tag name, and the maximum will be 10. All right, then we want to invoke this or call this. Once we have this name done, we also want to have an int column, which will represent the color, because colors can be represented as 32-bit integers, which is precisely what an integer is. It's 32 bits. Longs are 64 bits. So get color, and this will grant us simply an integer without any kind of custom constraints or any such thing. And then, because we are not having an ID which is auto-incrementing, we have to set the primary key to be the name manually. Because when you apply auto-increment on a column, it automatically applies the primary key on that column. But since we do not have anything auto-incrementing, we need to provide our own set column get primary key, and this will grant us a set name. And also we should override this, so add override. Also, a byproduct of setting the name to be the primary key is that, among other things, name will now have to be unique among all of the tags, because primary keys simply have the unique constraint built into them. And also we have the Dart compiler complaining here that set literals weren't supported until version 2.2, but this code must be able to run on earlier versions. And that's completely true. And to get rid of this complaining of the compiler, we can go to pubspec.yaml, and here where it writes that SDK is greater or equal than 2.1.0, we're going to set it to 2.2.0. So if we save it now, you really do not need to even do this, but it's just something good to know to get rid of these squiggly lines. Now we do not have anything that the Dart compiler doesn't like. And because we've added a new table, now it's a good time to kick off the build process to source generate the new source code for Moor database. So we are going to run our favorite command, flutter packages pub run build runner. And then we're going to say watch, because we are going to add a bunch of things down the line. So we want to keep the build runner building stuff for us. So let's just do that. Once we have this tags table and we've built the Moor database generated file, it will be beneficial if we can add and access the contents of this tags table. So we're going to create a tag DAO to keep the queries separate from the task DAO queries, because we want to keep things separate to keep our code base clean. And there will be only two queries, watch tags and insert tag. So let's add a new class tag DAO below all of the other code. So class tag DAO extends database accessor. We can actually copy this from the task DAO, but of course it will not be with a task DAO mixin, but instead a tag DAO mixin. And now we also want to use the use DAO annotation. So we will specify tables for this DAO will be simply the tags table. And then we want to have a final app database called DB field in here. We're going to populate this from the tag DAO constructor. So this.db, and pass this database instance to the super constructor of the database accessor. So let's just do this. And now we want to just have two queries in here. One will be watch tags and another one will be insert tag. So we will not be able to update or delete tags. You can definitely do something like that. But just to keep things simple, similar to how we do not have an ID for tags, we're not going to have update and delete functionality for the tags. So the first one, watch tags, will return a stream containing a list of tags, which will list of tag. It's called watch tags. And in here, we just want to call select on the tags table. Oh, and this doesn't look good because we cannot access the tag data class. So it even says that the name tag isn't a type. So how can we fix this? Well, we can obviously go up here and add the tags table to the use Moor annotation on the app database class. And if we do this, the data class will be generated. And let's also, while we are at that, add a DAO to here, because now we have even tags DAO or tag DAO. So once we save this and go down here again, we should be able to have the tag class, which is definitely good. And we can even select the tags table. And we want to simply say after the select to watch it, because we do not want to perform any ordering or anything like that. And then the other query will be insert tag, which will simply return a future. So insert tag, it will take in an insertable containing a tag called tag. And we simply want to insert into the tags table, insert the tag which is passed in here. Alright, so by now we have a tag DAO, we have the tags table, but we are still not in any way referencing tags from individual tasks. So let's come up to the tasks table definition, and we'll want to add a new text column to a task. That's because individual tasks will use the name of a tag to reference it, because the name is also the primary key of the tag. If you were to use an ID for the tag as the primary key, you would reference that ID, but the process is basically the same. Also, a task doesn't necessarily have to have a tag, in which case it will have a null reference for the tag name. So we want to have a text column which will be called tag name, and it will simply return a text which will be nullable. And also let's call it here. And then joining the tasks with their tags will be done by looking up the referenced tag name. And of course we won't have to write this lookup code ourselves, but we'll let the SQL and Moor do their job. Currently, this tag name column can contain values which do not reference any tag inside the tags table. Of course, this is apart from the null values, because we want to have null values in here. We just do not want to have some text values which are completely made up and do not reference anything real in the tags table. If we were to leave the tag name column like this without any custom checking, basically, once we would want to join the tables, the join statement would not know what to do, because it would find a tag name reference in here. It would try to find that tag in the tags table, but it would not be able to find anything like that because the name just doesn't exist. So to add some security to the tasks table data, we will use a foreign key constraint on the tag name column. This way, when we try to insert a new tag and there isn't already a tag with the specified name in the tags table, an exception will be thrown and the whole join statement complete disaster will stop before it even started. So to apply a foreign key, we're gonna use a custom constraint on this text column, because foreign keys are currently not supported in the Fluent syntax. We have to write a bit of an SQL ourselves. So let's just write here custom constraint, which will say references, and it should reference always something in the tags table, and that something will be a column value from the name column. So now whenever we will try to insert a tag name into a task which does not reference anything in the tags name column, we will get an exception. But also we want this tag name to be nullable, and even though we are specifying it right here to be nullable, we also have to add a custom constraint of null in here, We have to do this simply because custom constraints disable the Fluent ones in the actual SQLite database, but we still want the generated tag data class to have the tag name field not be required, because whenever you have something not nullable, the field is automatically marked as required in the data class. So we basically define the nullable constraint 2 times, once in Fluent syntax and once in custom SQLite syntax. So at this point we have tasks which reference tags. We have the tags themselves and we also have the tags DAO. But before we can happily join a task with its tag and run the app, we have to think about letting the already existing database version know about the changed schema. Because think about it, we already have a database on the device which contains some data. We don't want to just recreate the database completely, because that would completely wipe all of the data which is already present in that database. So we just want to add a bunch of new things to the database schema, and those things are the tags table, which will be completely empty. But then we want to add tag names, which will be null by default. But the other data, the other content in the tasks table will remain untouched. So if we had a task with a name recorded tutorial, that task will remain in the database. It will just have a new column tag name, which will be null. Whenever the schema changes, you should also bump up the schema version in the app database class. So now it's gonna be 2. And to provide the actual migration from the version of the schema 1 to the version 2, we're going to provide a migration strategy. So let's just write migration here, which is a property which we want to override. And we're going to say that we want to have a new migration strategy in here. And inside this migration strategy, we want to override on upgrade, which will grant us 3 arguments or 3 parameters: migrator, then from, and to. The from and to are simply version numbers. It will be asynchronous, this callback function. And if we are upgrading from the version 1, so if from is equal to 1, we want to add the things which we have actually added. So that is the tag name as a column in the tasks table, and then the whole tags table. So let's first add a single column. So await migrator dot add column, and we want to add a new column to the tasks table, and that column is tasks dot tag name. But we are getting an error in this migrator when we try to add a column, because it says that tag name is of type text column and it cannot be assigned to the parameter type generated column dynamic SQL type. So what's actually going on here? We can access the tag name, but it's not of the correct type. We are not doing anything incorrectly here. What's just happening is that if we take a look at the generated Moor database file, we will see that inside the tasks table somewhere in here, right? The generated tasks table, it contains ID, it contains name, due date, completed, and that's about it. So it doesn't contain the generated code, the generated text column for the tag name reference. This happens because of an issue with the build system for Dart. So let's just open up the terminal. We're going to hit Ctrl+C to terminate the build process. It should be Command+C on Mac, probably. So let's just say yes, we want to terminate it. And now what we want to do is to clean the whole Flutter build system for this project. So we will have a clean slate, and the new code generation, which we trigger in just a bit, will generate everything properly. So let's just run Flutter clean. So as you can see, it deleted the whole build folder from the Flutter framework, and then it also deleted, just for this project, the folder Dart tool. And what this does is that it will basically unclog our project from all of the previous builds. So now once we run the command flutter packages pub run build runner watch, we will be able to generate even the tag name column on the tasks table. But there's another thing which we need to provide to this command, and that is the option to delete conflicting outputs, because still there will be some files somewhere in there which are old files, and we want to delete those old files because they are not compatible with what we are trying to build, basically. If we do not provide this option first, this build command will fail. We'll get a message that we actually have to provide this delete conflicting outputs option. And sure enough, we have a severe failure here, and it says that we have to remove conflicting outputs manually, or we can run the build command with delete conflicting outputs. So let's just copy this option and run watch, but this time with this option, delete conflicting outputs. And now the build will happen just fine, and we should have the tag name column generated for us in the Moor database.g.dart file. Alright, so once this is done, we have succeeded with the build, and sure enough, we can now access the tag name. Another thing which we want to add to this migrator, or actually we want to tell the migrator to add this thing to the database, is that we want to add the whole table. So actually we want to create table, and the table's name is simply tags. This onUpgrade callback runs only if the database has already been created before. So if this is not the first time that the app is running on the device. If it's the first time that the app is running, an onCreate callback will run, and we actually do not need to even implement it ourselves, because onCreate default implementation is to just create all of the tables with blank data. So if some user happens to install the version 2 of the database or of the app directly without having version 1 previously installed, that user will not run any migration, because all of the columns and all of the tables will be created for him automatically. And actually this migration property ties in nicely with the foreign key we've added previously, because it turns out that foreign keys are actually not enabled by default in SQLite. We have to enable them ourselves with a custom statement. And all of the links to the appropriate SQLite documentation are available from the written tutorial, to which you can get by clicking on the link in the video description. We want to run this statement to enable foreign keys before any other queries are run, to prevent the chance of unchecked data from entering the database. And to run some statement before anything else, we can use the before open callback function on the migration strategy. So just let's specify before open, which will grant us a database instance, and open details, which we actually do not need at all, but we can just specify them in here. Details provide you with data like had upgrade, or version before, version now, or was created. We do not really need them. What we actually want to do here is to await and call db.customStatement. And what we want to run here is pragma statement. So pragma foreign keys equals on. This is simply the statement which will enable foreign keys on an SQLite database. And with all of this very necessary setup in place, we can finally start with the actual joins. First though, we'll have to create a simple class to group a task with its tag. So we're gonna call it task with tag. Let's just create it above the app database class, task with tag. And this will be a very simple class containing just final, task, and then final, tag. And we're just going to have these things populated in the constructor. And this constructor will have optional parameters, or actually named parameters, which are also optional. So we want to actually make them required. And this dot tags or task, those names are really hard to pronounce after each other, and also required this dot tag. And the join itself will happen inside the task DAO, so we have to update it to also be able to access the tags table. And let's just also remove all of the code from the previous part, which would now just clutter up the class. And of course, you can always get the old code either by watching the tutorial, and you can of course get it from the written tutorial for that part, or even from the Git project, which is hosted on GitHub. So let's just delete these queries, which is for completed tasks generated. We are not going to be able to observe only completed tasks just to keep the code base simpler. We are also going to remove get all tasks, watch completed tasks, also watch completed tasks custom, and we're just going to be left with watch all tasks and insert update delete. So we basically have a full CRUD functionality for the task DAO. We will want to perform the table join inside the watch all tasks function, so it will no longer return just a list of tasks, but instead a list of tasks with tag. And while previously we just selected, ordered by, and then watched, we're now going to select, order by, join, and then only watch. So let's do that right now. Before watch, we're going to say join, and join actually returns something we want to have because it returns a joined select statement, whereas the order by returns void. So while we used cascading operators for order by and also for where clauses for where statements, we're going to use a standard accessor operator for the join statements because we actually want to get their value. And we are also calling join on the whole parentheses, which contains the select statement. So join, and now we're gonna provide all of the different joins which we want to perform. We actually want to perform only one join, which is left outer join. And we want to join the tags table, or the data which is contained inside the tags table, and to join only appropriate data, so only the task which references that particular tag, we are going to provide an expression here. And what do we want to join by? Well, we want to join by the name of the tag, so tags.name. And how are we going to find out which tag belongs to which task? Well, we are going to perform an equality check, but it's important that you do not provide an equals, but instead this equals expression, because equals expression will be performed on all of the tag names inside the tasks class or the tasks table. So tag name here. And we are using a left outer join for this particular situation, which in a Venn diagram looks something like this. Moor also supports an inner join and also a cross join, and to learn more about joins and the differences between them, I have a link available in the written tutorial to which you can get from the link in the video description. But we cannot just simply watch on a join, because join does not return a list task with tag. Instead, it returns a list typed result. And we now want to take this typed result and turn it into task with tag list. So after calling watch, we are on this going to call map, and we want to map whatever is emitted from the stream which watch generates. So this map is running on the stream, and we want to map rows. And these rows, which is a list of type result, now we want to map rows. So again map, but this time this map is different from the previous map because the second map runs on a list, not on a stream. And we want to map each row, and as you surely know, the map method is used to transform the type of a list to another type. And well, what do we want to do inside this list map? We want to return task with tag. And now we want to populate the task first to keep it organized. And what is going to be the task assigned to? Well, we can operate only with the row, and this row has a nifty little function called read table. So the join statement basically returns us some raw SQL data, and we can then use the power of Moor to simply transform this raw SQL joined data into something with which we can work from the Dart code. So we want to set the task to be row.readTable, and the table name is nothing else than tasks. And then also we want to have tag, which will be row.readTable tags. And now, once we organize it a bit so that it doesn't look completely horribly, probably something like this, we now want to convert it to a list, because map returns an iterable, but we want to have a list here. And with this, and with the power of Moor to be precise, we have just joined two tables, so tasks with their tags, and we did not really have to write a single bit of custom SQL to do that. Everything apart obviously from the foreign key was possible to do directly from the Fluent syntax. If this code is giving you a bit of a headache, I completely understand you. And if you want to go through this in more detail and most importantly at your own pace, I really recommend you to learn from the written tutorial, which is available from the link in the video description. So this was a lot of coding here in this part. So let's now just update the UI to have all of the necessary things. Namely, we are going to add the new tag input widget, we're going to add the tag selector to the new task input widget, and we're going to show tags in the individual tasks displayed in the list. Let's start off in main.dart, because we no longer want to provide just the task DAO, but we also now have the tag DAO. And as usual, I will go through this UI coding part really quickly without much explanation. If making UIs, which definitely will look better than this one, is something that you're interested in, let me know in the comments. And you can always get this code, whether for the UI or the other code for the Moor database itself, either from the written tutorial and also from the project, which is available from the link in the written tutorial. So we no longer want to return just a provider, but a multi-provider, which will provide both task DAO and tag DAO. And it's important that you instantiate the app database still just once, because you don't want to have two instances of app database. Next, similar to how we have new task input widget, we will now add a new tag input widget, which will be very similar to the task input. So let's just create new file, new tag input widget, and I will just really quickly walk you through this code. So in here we are specifying first that the default color of a tag should be red, and then we have two class fields, which is the state of this state class, because we are using just stateful widgets. We are not really doing any kind of a advanced state management, just to keep this simple. However, if you want to do more advanced state management, I really recommend you to adopt the block pattern and actually to use the block library, because it makes your life much simpler than just implementing block from scratch. So if you want to learn about that block library, check out the video from the card in the corner. This new tag input widget will contain simply a text field and then a color picker button. This text field is where we will actually add a new tag to the tags table. So we're going to get the tag DAO by using the provider, and then actually we're going to add the tag by using a tags companion class, and actually we should put it into a variable called tag, not task. We could also just add a tag using the tag data class and then pass in the input name directly without wrapping it inside a value. This is totally possible too, and actually we can just leave it at that because we are populating all of the fields that a tag has. However, if you are leaving a non-nullable field empty, for example, so that it auto increments, or maybe it has some default value specified, you should always use the companion class. If you completely do not understand what I just said, you should definitely watch the previous part of this tutorial series by clicking on the card in the corner, because there I explain all of that in full detail. And actually you should watch the previous part anyway, because this is a series, so you probably didn't even come thus far if you did not watch the previous part before. Alright, and that's about it. Now we have only a color picker button, which will show a color picker dialog, and inside of that we are showing an alert dialog which has a material color picker. And again, you can get this code from the link in the video description. Then inside the new task input widget, we are going to add a bunch of things in here. So just similar to how we have new task date, we are also going to have tag selected tag. Then we want to add a whole block of code for the tag selector, which you can see right here. So this is what we want to add here. We're going to add the block of code below build text field. So inside of here, we are using a drop-down menu button to show the drop-down selector, and we are using a stream builder and watching tags to populate this drop-down buttons list of tags. So we are accessing the provider tag DAO, and then we are calling watch tags. So here is the drop-down button, where by clicking on it we are selecting a tag. But the drop-down button cannot take in simply our tags data classes. We need to convert them to drop-down menu items, and we are doing so inside the function. And again, you can just get this code from the link in the video description. Finally, we are also updating the other methods in here, which will simply reflect some layout changes. For example, we've added a flex to this expanded of build text field because we do not want to expand it completely, and so on and so forth. So definitely just see the code from the link in the video description. One last important thing is that below here down, we want to, similarly how we set new task date to be null when we reset values after submit, we also want to set selected tag to be null. And finally, inside the home page, we are completely going to update it because we are going to remove the completed only switch, and we are going to add the tags to be displayed in the list views items. So let's completely change this code. It's using even some of the new awesome Dart 2.3 functionality of having if statements and spread elements directly inside a list of widgets. And with this done, after we import new tag input, we can run this app. And here we go. Even though we have already been running this app previously on the previous version of the database, we can see that we do not get any crashes because we've provided a migration, and that migration made it so that we have empty tags inside the already existing tasks. And we currently do not have any tags created, so let's create one. We're going to call it just new tag, and let's give it some nice color in here, for example, purple. and let's add it here. We're going to select this new tag, also date for the task. We're just going to call it tagged task, and let's add it here. And as you can see, we've successfully added a new task with a new tag, which has a color, and everything works just properly. If you don't want to miss more tutorials like this, definitely subscribe to this channel and also join the notification squad by hitting the bell button to make sure you grow your Flutter skills, because here on ResoCoder I am determined to provide you with the best app development tutorials and resources out there. If this tutorial helped you with performing table joins with the Moor package on Flutter, definitely give it a like and also share it with other developers who will surely benefit from it too. Follow me on social media, predominantly on Instagram, because that's where I post all of the behind the scenes stuff. So if you want to learn what's being prepared for you before it comes out, I am going under the name ResoCoder everywhere. Leave a comment if you have anything to say, any suggestions or questions, and see you in the next video.